My toxic entitled classmate tries to pass off my hard work as his own during our group project, all while I'm recovering in the emergency room. So I decided to get some revenge by not only ensuring that my professor was aware of everything going on, but also making sure that he couldn't take credit for anything that I worked on. Here's what happened. So this happened a few semesters ago where I was taking a course in urban design. Everyone was grouped in threes, but one of my group members wanted to join another group with their friend. So I ended up with one other person. I'm not sure why the professor thought this was okay, but I wasn't too worried because I was fairly confident in my ability to do the work. The course incorporated previous studio courses to tie together in a massive topic of urban planning, which included architectural design, environmental sustainability, urban infrastructure, and historic preservation. I tried to brainstorm with my partner on which direction we should go. My idea was focused on residents, as housing would address a huge demand here in New York City. However, my partner seemed content on making the project about industrial buildings, so I just focused there. We brainstormed on different ideas, but got the impression that he just wanted me to take the lead, as he mostly agreed while not really giving much input. Well, weeks went by, and I constantly updated my partner on my progress via WhatsApp, while rarely getting any kind of feedback or updates from him. It annoyed me a bit, but I was still confident in my work, which was enough to get us through the next checkpoint during our next presentation. Well, at some point during the semester, I got a really terrible kidney stone. It wasn't from junk food or a poor diet. In fact, it was from eating too much black beans and chickpeas. Now, as a side note, I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of foods, which I used to come up with a meal plan that meets my macro needs. Now, I did feel better with my new diet, but it eventually led to me having my worst kidney stone of my life that ended up putting me in the emergency room. I was on all kinds of pain medications, and I had to stay there for several nights. But it didn't end there. The stone was so big that it got stuck, and I ended up needing surgery to put in a stent. I had to wait several more weeks and endure a lot of pain, and have to have another surgery just to remove the stent, all before I was finally recovering. Now, throughout this whole time, I managed to put in some work into my project. But you know what? I was surprised to learn that my partner did absolutely nothing and waited for me to continue my work. Like, what is going on? To make it even worse, I learned that he tried to present my work as his own. I mean, how can people be like that? I emailed my professor about my situation. I explained how I've done all the work so far and sent him screenshots of the chat, as well as my project file, which includes all of the history logs. The professor reminded me that during the final submission, everyone had to put their initials on the slides of the work that they worked on. And I thought to myself, okay, you got it. And it's right then that I started to plan. Now, luckily, I was recovered and ready to present my work, but I left out the initials as it wasn't required for the presentation and only for the final submission. And I did this because I really felt the need to see what he would do. I even tried to cut him some slack and gave him some talking points on the parts that I'd allow him to claim as his own, even though it was fully my work. But you know what? He didn't. He kept cutting me off during the presentation to talk about my project as if he had anything to do with it. He mostly repeated the same information that I mentioned while not bringing anything of value to point out. The final presentation had several judges who were comprised of local professionals in high-level positions within the industry. The conversation was always directed at me, so I had a good feeling that everyone understood that I did most of the work, as I knew all the intimate knowledge of the parts. Then came the last day to submit our work. The final slides included my initials on every single page. Apparently, my partner missed that part about the initials and also submitted an older version of my work. A few weeks go by and I hit him up asking what he got, and I was surprised to learn that he actually passed with a C+, but he was even more surprised to hear that I received an A- and promptly said he will have a talk with the professor on why he received such a low grade. So honestly, why are these people like this? But regardless, at the end of the day, I did do everything as instructed, and as a result, I ended up with one heck of a semester. Man, this story really makes me mad because this absolutely is so unfair. Here you are in the hospital, and you find out that your project partner is trying to pass off your work as your own. Like, that's enough to make me go crazy, and that really would tick me off beyond end. So truly, good for you for getting back at this guy, because for him to try and take your work like that is truly incredibly toxic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job is quite literally the most exhausting environment I've ever worked at, and I seriously hope I never work in a place like this ever again. Here's what happened. So I work at a gas station/grocery store, and it it is actually my first time working in this type of environment, and it most likely will be my last. I have become completely mentally drained by how dumb people truly are. I mean, I knew people were dumb, but I had no idea just how dumb. It's like there is a stupid contest, and every 30 minutes a new contestant shows up to try and one-up the other one. In fact, just today alone, I had 2 transactions that have blown my mind, and I'm not even halfway through my shift. Contestant number 1 is this guy that looks to be about 30 years old, and he looks pretty normal. He has just a few things to ring up, and we do so as normal. When it's time to pay, he swipes his card and just blankly stares at the pin pad. He looks at me and I look at him, and there's a good bit of awkward silence between the two of us. He then finally says to me with the most blank expression, "It's asking me if I want cash back, but I don't want cash back." So I say to him, please push the button that says no, as there is literally only 2 button options on the screen. He can either press yes or no. He keeps staring at me in complete radio silence. I then just reach over the counter and push the button for him, as I simply don't have time for this. There are people waiting after all. But yet again, he stares in silence, saying, "No, it's asking for my PIN number." And at this point, I'm in disbelief. So I tell him, okay, well, enter your PIN number. And thankfully, he does so without hesitation. We then finish the transaction, and thankfully he leaves. And it makes me think, this simply can't be your first time using a debit card, or even seeing a cashback prompt, or even entering your PIN number, right? Well, clearly I must have been wrong. Contestant number 2 walks in the front door, sees me checking someone out, and blurts out, "Are you guys open right now?" And by the way, real quick, the store I work at is famously open 24 hours a day. At that moment, I try as hard as I can not to say, "No, we're closed, I'm here for fun." But I reply with a simple yes, because he is staring at me like he wants a genuine reply to what just feels like an extremely dumb question without the context of where he is and what he sees happening around him. And right then and there, I just know that he's going to get up to the counter and be the most annoying person of all time. And yep, he starts asking me questions that I can't answer with a simple yes or no, like forcing me to talk to him in a way. We get to the checkout portion with me trying to minimize conversation as much as I possibly can, and I see him pull out his driver's license and start trying to swipe it like a credit card. And you know what? I let him do it a few more times before I finally say, "That's your driver's license." Well, he doesn't say a word. He does a full 180 turn and completely walks out of the store, leaving everything that he grabbed on the counter and doesn't come back. Now, it's not these 2 interactions alone. It's these types of interactions repeatedly and more frequently than you would believe that just becomes so exhausting. Like someone looking at me and blurting out, "How much does this cost?" from the other side of the store. And it's like, I don't know, you jelly-filled donut. There's probably 1,000 different items on the shelves, and each one is typically labeled. Plus, I can't even see what you're referring to. But overall, I am simply exhausted by this job, and I seriously hope I don't have to work in a place like this ever again. Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, because seriously, some customers are just like blatantly stupid. They don't know how to do anything, they don't know what they want, and if you don't give in to their demands, they just completely take it out on you. Thankfully, the people you dealt with were stupid but harmless, but trust me, when they're stupid and harmful, it quite literally will ruin your week. So hopefully you're able to find a better job than this place, because what you described sounds incredibly exhausting. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cutting off my entire family after my brother and girlfriend accused me of something that I definitely didn't do that resulted in me being exiled from the family? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 24-year-old male, and I feel like my life has been ripped apart by people who were supposed to love me the most. This all started about 6 years ago, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with it. I've been dating a woman that we will call Emily ever since high school. Our families were that close, and our parents were childhood friends, and we grew up together, and I thought that I would end up marrying her. We had spent nearly our entire lives side by side, going to the same schools, hanging out with the same friends, even going on family vacations together. She was my first love, and I truly believed that we were forever. Then there's my older brother, who we will call Alex. He's always been the golden child. Smart, charismatic, successful. He was my parents' favorite, but I never thought that would matter until everything fell apart. 6 years ago, Emily accused me of mistreating her in the worst possible way, if you know what I mean. And when she did this, I was completely blindsided. We had been together for years. Why would she say something like that? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then, to make matters worse, Alex stepped in, backing her up. He told our parents that he had witnessed me behaving inappropriately towards her at a party, and he claimed that he had been protecting her, and my parents just ate it up. No one believed me. I was horrified, confused, and heartbroken, but my parents didn't even ask for my side of the story. They believed Alex and Emily without any question. I was kicked out of the house within days, and the entire community turned its back on me. Emily's father, who had been like a second father to me, also cut all ties with me. I lost everything. My girlfriend, my family, my reputation. My parents told me they didn't want to see me again until I got help for something I hadn't even done. I was 18 at the time and had nowhere to go. I ended up crashing at a friend's place for a while, but emotionally, I was a wreck. I spiraled into depression and alcoholism, using anything I could to numb the pain of being abandoned and falsely accused by the people I trusted the most. For years, I struggled to move on. I changed cities, started therapy, and slowly started rebuilding my life. But the betrayal still haunted me. Dating was nearly impossible because I couldn't shake the feeling that people would turn on me, just like Emily and Alex did. My family never reached out, and I never tried to contact them either. I couldn't forgive them for kicking me out based on nothing but lies. Then, about 6 months ago, everything changed. One of Emily's old friends, who we will call Lisa, who had stopped talking to her after the fallout, reached out to me. She told me that she couldn't live with the guilt anymore and that she had something to confess. She revealed that Emily and Alex had been in love with each other for years. They had started seeing each other behind my back while we were still together, and when Emily wanted to leave me for Alex, they both came up with a false accusation as a way to force me out of the picture. Alex knew that if he backed me up, my parents would believe them without a second thought, and it worked. Emily and Alex got together immediately after I was kicked out. Now they're married, and as far as I know, they've built the perfect life, while I was left to pick up the pieces of my own. But here's where it gets even more twisted. After Lisa told me the truth, she went to my parents. She couldn't stand knowing the truth anymore, and she wanted to know that they had thrown their son away for a lie. Well, my parents were shocked. Lisa explained how Alex had manipulated Emily, how they had both set me up to be the scapegoat, and my parents reached out to me soon after, begging to meet up and talk to me. They were devastating and crying on the phone, telling me how sorry they were for not believing me. They admitted that they had been blinded by their trust in Alex and their love for Emily. Now, at first, I thought I'd feel some kind of satisfaction from finally being vindicated, but all I felt was anger. It took them 6 years to figure out the truth, and even now they wanted to fix things like nothing had happened. But the worst part about it is that they have forgiven Alex and Emily. My parents say that family is family, and that what's done is done. They still love Alex, and they've even welcomed Emily back into their lives. They want us all to reconcile and to put this behind us, and act as if the last 6 years didn't destroy me. I haven't responded to their latest attempts to reach out, and I don't know if I can ever forgive them for what they did. They threw me out based on a lie, abandoned me when I needed them the most, and now they want me to just get over it because Alex and Emily are supposedly family. So am I the jerk for cutting off my family, even after they found out the truth about what really happened? Because right now I am so angry that I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my god, I am so sorry you went through this. Like seriously, this is insane in my opinion. Not only did you have an awful girlfriend who was cheating on you, but also she accused you of something horrifying. Like there's no excuse for that, and in my opinion there is no forgiving that. Like I would never trust my family ever again if someone did that to me and they believed them. But even on top of that, if they didn't believe me or even like begin to understand my side of things and just automatically said, no, Emily said you did this and Alex is backing her up. You're out of the family. Don't come back until you get help. Like I would never trust those people ever again. It's also equally insulting that your family is welcoming back Alex and Emily and they're just like, listen, family is family. What's done is done. We need to get over it. And it's like, dude, I've spent 6 years on my own figuring out my life because you turned your back on me. And suddenly the onus of like forgiveness is on my shoulders? Like, no, I do not think so. Because if I was in your shoes, I would not feel like these people have earned my forgiveness at all. And honestly, I don't think I could forgive them if someone did that to me, like legitimately. I would never trust them again and they would be completely out of my life. So to that end, I don't think you're the jerk at all for cutting them out of your life because they literally ruined yours. And I just don't think that's something that I could ever forgive, especially overnight. My in-laws spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just to try and live near us so that they could see their grandkid. But as a result, they completely ruined their lives, spending more money than they ever thought possible, all in some kind of effort to build a house closer to us. Here's what happened. Back in 2016, my wife and I decided to buy vacant land about 3 hours from where we live. The jobs were better there for both of us, and we were sick and tired of our hometown. We were going to save up for a few more years and build our forever home. We are only children with the only grandchild, and the grandparents were very active in our lives and the child's life. We offered them to go in with us on land and they could build a house too. My parents agreed, but the in-laws said no, because they just can't think that far ahead into the future. So we bought 5 acres with my parents. Fast forward to 2020, and we started building, and we've moved into a rental nearby. And when we did that, my in-laws freaked out. My mother-in-law starts crying that we can't take away their grandchild. They say it's unfair to move somewhere they can't afford to move to, but we remind them that it's only a 3-hour drive away, and that we gave them the chance to to go in with us to make it affordable. And because they didn't go in with us, we didn't buy land zoned for 3 families. Well, a few weeks after we moved, the in-laws call us. They say that they have a plan. They're going to sell their place, which is completely paid off, and buy a small plot of land an hour away from us in the mountains. And then they're going to put a manufactured home on it. Now, this was going to be affordable because my father-in-law is a retired civil engineer and insisted that he could be his own general contractor. Well, now we had just built a house. We know what a pain in the rear end it is and how unexpectedly expensive it is. Both of the in-laws were retired, and we had recently found out that they had almost no savings. And this is all despite making low 6 figures in a low cost of living area for the last 25 years. And in fact, they were living off of Social Security. So we told them that they should keep their house that is paid off and just make the drive to see us, because this was going to be a lot more expensive than they were planning. My father-in-law showed me his budget, and it looked like it was based on building costs from the 90s. For example, our well and pump cost $25,000, but his budget is only for $5,000. When I pointed out his estimates were way too low, he got mad at me and said I overpaid. Now, my father-in-law is extremely old-fashioned and from a rural Missouri. He still goes to the store or mechanic and tries to barter for services. Well, true to form, my father-in-law found someone to buy their house for 75% of market value cash plus services. The guy was a contractor that put up fences around dairies. And honestly, I have no idea how my father-in-law thought this guy would help, but my father-in-law insisted the man was very handy. So that left them with $300,000 for this project, and trust me, this is California, so that is not a lot. They bought the mobile home for $150,000, and that included a $20,000 discount because my father-in-law insisted that he could set the home on the foundation and finish it, meaning that he would install carpets and doors and other things the company usually does, all for much less than that. But by my math, they actually had just barely made enough for electric, trenching, septic, water, foundation, finishing, grading, and permits, and the fees. My father-in-law got bids for everything, which all looked reasonable to me, but he insisted that they were way too high, so he was going to wait for the market to come down. He did take the bid for the foundation though, and ended up getting it poured. In the meantime, he bought a fifth wheel to live on the property, and my mother-in-law moved in with a neighbor and lived in their fifth wheel. My father-in-law then went on what I can only best describe as a spending spree. Anything he thought was a good deal that he could turn around and sell for more, he ended up buying. I showed up at his fifth wheel, and there was just tons of garbage all over the place. Like, here's an incomplete list of some of the things he bought. He got a used Cadillac SUV even though he already had 2 cars. He also got hay storage that goes on the back of his horse trailer. He bought 3 stoves that were open box from Lowe's, some slightly damaged cabinets from Lowe's, 300 feet of steel piping that might be used for fencing, 6 gas-powered generators, a used saddle, and tons of parts for his truck. The generators were because he refused to pay for any hookup fees because they would report him to the county and make him pay a permit, as well as school fees he was trying to avoid. So his idea was that he would constantly run generators for power. When we pointed out that they were loud, he had neighbors, and couldn't run them overnight for things like his fridge, he said to me, "I'll just push the fridge outside every night. It is pretty cold here." Well, after the mobile home arrived, he realized he needed to clear trees. He didn't want to pay a licensed contractor, so he paid someone who he met at a hardware store to do it. Well, they dropped a massive tree on the foundation, which completely shattered it. And for reasons I still do not understand, he put the mobile home on blocks over the foundation before fixing it. He was now afraid to remove any more trees, so now there is just a giant tree 3 feet in front of their front door, and the door cannot open all the way. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law also went on a shopping bender and bought all new furniture while doing nothing to help out with the actual project. All she did was complain about what my father-in-law was doing and how long it was taking. Now, fast forward 2 years later, and my mother-in-law has had to move in with her sister and wants a divorce. My mother-in-law asked me for help for finishing this project so she can sell it and get her share. I meet with my father-in-law and I tell him that I'm gonna get some contractors up here just so they can finish the job. And I was then informed that they still had $90,000 in the building fund. So I called all my contractors and I got bids, and we could just barely get everything paid for except for permits and fees for that amount, because my friends were definitely cutting me a deal. I mean, they built my house and I gave them several referrals. So I asked to see the money before my friends start the project, and guess what I see? They only have $5,000 left. $5,000 from $150,000. I asked them where the money went, and my father-in-law said he spent it on the construction project. He said that he bought the special sand that you need need for electrical trenching, and then he showed me the special sand. But it was all just run-of-the-mill. Someone fleeced him for it, and he had paid $6,000 for a couple cubic yards of it. The steel pipe he said was for the horse farm, and he said he met a woman at the grocery store who wanted to board up her horses somewhere and agreed to do it with him. But his zoning does not allow horses. So I just asked my mother-in-law for the bank statements on the building account for the last couple of years. I start going through it, and he was using it like a debit card. He paid for his car insurance, trips to the liquor store, as he was always drinking ungodly amounts of alcohol, or even just buying donuts. I mean, he had spent all of it. My mother-in-law was furious, but I said, listen, you had access to this the whole time. You could have checked what he was doing. I later called my father-in-law and I chewed him out for spending all the money on useless garbage and for wasting my contractor's time. I said you spent the money for your home and now neither of you have anywhere to live. I was furious because this is a man that I care about, and now he is effectively homeless, and my mother-in-law was now living in a one-bedroom apartment with her sister and her nephew. Well, he got mad, said none of that was true, and then stopped talking to us. He sent an email to everyone else in the family telling them that I'm a huge jerk, amongst other things. He even reached out to my wife expecting her to take his side, but she didn't. At this point, he is now estranged to us. He still lives in the fifth wheel on the lot without any kind of electricity, and every November when it gets cold, he will call us or text us or email us saying that he's ready to finish the house now, but that he needs to borrow some money. I had to go up there to get some of my mother-in-law's stuff, and it looks like a complete mess. There's bottles and cans everywhere, there's garbage everywhere, tons of weather damage to the mobile home, all because it's not sealed and finished. There's piles of junk literally everywhere, and the Cadillac is up on blocks because he wrecked it, and he's trying to fix it himself. Oh, and remember the carpet and cabinets and the doors and everything else? Well, they were never installed, and now they're just rotting in the weather. My mother-in-law still lives with her sister and has no plans for her sister when she passes away because she is much older and sicker. She occasionally hints at moving in with us, but that is a non-starter for a million reasons. But this entire situation is absolutely baffling, and it all could have been avoided if they simply listened to us from the very beginning. Yeah, these people are very poor at planning their lives because seriously, this all could have been avoided. They wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars just to be closer to someone when they could have just driven the 3 hours to see the family. Like, that is so crazy that they spent that much money for literally no reason. So yeah, your in-laws are not the smartest people in the world because what they did to themselves was entirely preventable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.